Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, where in today's Tier 8 standard battle here on the Siegfried Line map, we're featuring... I can't say his name with a straight face. Dusty Balls in the British Tier 8 medium tank, the Centurion Mark 1. Although technically this is the Mark 3 because it's got the upgraded turret and the 20-pounder gun, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. So anyway, Dusty Balls in the Mark 1 Centurion, possibly one of the best and also at the same time one of the worst tanks in this entire game. Fully upgraded, this tank is not bad at all, and you can tell that Dusty's Centurion is fully upgraded. He's got the 20-pounder gun, he's got the upgraded turret, the same excellent turret that you get on the Mark 7 at Tier 9. Judging by the speed that he's moving, he's also got the upgraded Meteor engine. Stock, however, this tank is absolutely terrible. Let's list all the things that are absolutely awful about this tank when you first unlock it. The engine's underpowered. The hull armour is just atrociously bad. And the hull armour on this thing is always going to be atrociously bad. There's nothing you can do about that. The hull armour on the Tier 9 Mark 7 Centurion is also hopelessly bad, but the turret armour on the stock Centurion Mark 1 is absolutely awful as well. It's also big and it's got very bad concealment, but the worst thing about the Mark 1 Centurion when you first unlock it is the selection of guns available. Because unless you unlock the 17-pounder gun on the Black Prince or the Sherman Firefly, and please tell me if you play the Sherman Firefly you've unlocked the 17-pounder, because why else would you play the Sherman Firefly? Then you are forced to play this thing with a 77mm gun at Tier 8 that only has 148mm of penetration. Now, playing this thing stock with the 17-pounder is still terrible, because while the gun's alright, everything else about the tank is awful. But once you do get this thing fully upgraded, and I definitely recommend starting with the 17-pounder, then getting the turret, and then, if the suspension will take it, get the upgraded Meteor engine. But once you've done all that, this tank is pretty damn good. I mean, it's still always going to be big. Believe it or not, it's actually bigger than the M103 heavy tank. But that 20-pounder gun has 226mm of penetration with standard ammunition, which is pretty impressive for a Tier 8 medium. But it's also, as you can see while he was sniping away at the turret weak spot with the BZ-176 over there, very, very accurate. And with the upgraded turret, you can get into a hull down position like this, and you're going to be an extremely frustrating opponent for the enemy to prize out of concealment. Although you are always going to be kind of vulnerable to artillery fire. He just took a hit there from the enemy M44, although it was not a direct hit. You can tell because his modules haven't been utterly wrecked. This tank is very susceptible to module damage. Fully upgraded and in a hull down position like this, however, you can take apart your opponents with ease. And there's his first kill on the enemy BZ-176. Quick word on the stock turret on this thing, by the way, which you're going to want to get rid of as soon as possible, because it not only looks terrible, but it doesn't actually protect you from anything either. Unlike a lot of other tanks that have a coaxial machine gun slaved to fire at the same target as the main battery gun, the Mark 1 Centurion has a coaxial 20mm cannon. Now before you get too excited, thinking, ooh, wow, that sounds like it's more useful than a machine gun, it's actually kind of not, because it's a single shot, manually loaded 20mm cannon, and it's actually there as a rangefinder. The idea being that you would load a shot of 20mm tracer fired at the target, and if the tracer hits the target, then the main gun will also hit the target. Oh, that sounds useful. Does it though? Because remember, it's a coaxial 20mm cannon, so if the 20mm is going to hit the target, and you find that out by firing a shot of 20mm tracer, then the main gun would have also hit the target and probably would have knocked it out. So I really failed to see the point, but well, that's what it had. Can't help but think a coaxial machine gun, maybe even a 50 cal, would have been better, which has similar ballistic properties to the 20-pounder shell, and is slightly more useful when it comes to hosing down exposed infantry caught in the open. I mean, the tank has a hole-mounted machine gun as well. but I just don't see the point of a 20mm single-shot manually loaded rangefinder, and neither did the tank designers, because it only ever featured on the Mark 1 turret and was very quickly dropped and replaced with a coaxial machine gun. He switched to the gold ammo there that punched through the frontal casement armour on the third NAND, although now he's got shots at the lower glacis and the hull armour, which the regular ammo with 226mm of penetration is perfectly capable of dealing with. But the gold ammo on this thing, the APCR, has 258mm of penetration. I mean, we're talking tier 10 medium tank standards of penetration there with the gold on this thing. Absolutely don't need it for most targets that you're going to be facing down here at tier 8 then. Certainly not the T-44, and certainly not the Hellcat. Standard ammo is more than capable of dealing with these guys. In fact, well, you might think it'd be a good idea to switch to the high explosive to deal with the Hellcat, but it only has 42mm of pen. Unlike the Mark 7 and the Action 10, the Mark 1 Centurion doesn't get access to high explosive squash head ammo. Yeah, the high explosive ammo on this thing is kind of weak. But that's kind of true of most actual British Second World War tanks, particularly the lower tier ones in World Tanks that are armed with, for example, 2-pounder and 6-pounder guns. They often didn't even have high explosive ammunition issued at all because, well, the shells just weren't big enough to pack a meaningful amount of high explosive filler. So tanks like the Crusader, for example, and the Matilda, on with 2-pounder guns. I mean, they have high explosive ammunition here in World Tanks, but in reality they were just never issued with high explosive ammunition because, well, with the pitiful amount of HE filler that you can actually pack inside a 2-pounder shell, you may as well just be throwing hand grenades. Oh, there's the M40. Holy shit, wow, really? That just blew his tracks off. Okay, well, he's not going anywhere in a hurry. And while you do suffer from a slower rate of fire on the 20-pounder gun, the damage output, while it's nowhere near the same as the 105mm that you get on the Mark 7 at tier 9, it's still pretty good and only requires 2 shots to take out most artillery. The theoretical damage per minute on the Centurion Mark 1 is actually not great. I mean, in theory, on paper, the stock 77mm gun has the highest damage per minute because it's got a blistering rate of fire of 15 shots per minute, and it only does 10 less average damage than the 17-pounder. But that's on paper. In reality, it's never going to penetrate anything with 148mm of penetration in tier 8 battles. The gun on this tank with the actual best damage per minute is the 17-pounder. Because it's only got a slightly slower rate of fire than the 77mm, and it's got 171mm of penetration. So it's likely to actually penetrate the things that it's shooting at, and if it can't deal with whatever armour it's firing on, then it's accurate enough to aim for weak spots. You're still going to want the 20-pounder though, because 226mm of penetration comes in extremely handy when you get up tiered and you end up in tier 10 battles, as does the 258mm of penetration on the gold ammo. And the DPM isn't that bad. It's alright. It's better than on the Mark 7 with the 105mm gun, but you're still going to want the 105mm gun on the Mark 7 because it's got insane penetration, it's as accurate as a laser, and it's got 390 alpha damage, which makes up somewhat for the relatively slow, even slower than the 20-pounder here on the Mark 1, rate of fire. Dusty balls in the Mark 1 Centurion, getting himself a cheeky little ace tanker, Confederate and high caliber there, although sadly, no Top Gun, just 1 kill short, with nearly 5,000 damage done in this tier 8 standard battle here on the Siegfried Line map, in what is both one of the worst and simultaneously best tanks available for its tier, the Mark 1 Centurion. Absolutely diabolically horrible stock grind, but a pretty capable all-rounder once fully upgraded, and a great training tank for the fun that you're going to have with the 105mm gun on the Mark 7 Centurion at tier 9. It's just that stock grind may sap your will to live. Because it is pretty bad. But trust your Uncle Jingles, it's going to be worth it. Anyway, congratulations Dusty, very well played, and I hope everybody enjoyed today's video, because that's it for today. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.